This episode is sponsored in part by ZSpace. Liz, you're a big reader. I think that's well established.
I am.
A couple authors. Isabella Allende.
Read her in college and beyond.
Percival Everett?
Yeah, he wrote James, which is like a retelling of the Huck Finn story.
Okay, cool. Min-Jin Lee?
Oh, Pachinko. That was like a big epic story, like so juicy.
Okay, how about Andy Weir?
He wrote The Martian, which I didn't read because that's like the sci-fi genre that I don't do a ton of reading.
Not your bag.
No.
All right. So new books from all four of them. You ready?
Okay.
Isabella Allende, Tidewater Dreams. Have you heard of that one?
Nope.
No. Okay. Percival Everett, The Rainmakers, set in a near-future American West where rain is a luxury commodity.
Oh, I haven't heard of it. Sounds interesting.
It was not a luxury commodity in the Northeast last weekend.
Very plentiful.
Yeah. Min-Jin Lee has a new book out called Nightshade Market.
Oh, that sounds interesting too. I haven't heard of it though.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Andy Weir, The Last Algorithm.
Oh, what's the last algorithm going to be?
So you've never heard of any of these?
No.
It's so weird because you're on top of your books.
Yeah, and I'm super excited because I did just see that Wally Lamb has a new book coming out, and I love his work. I Know This Much Is True was like one of my favorite books I read.
Huh, that's so weird. Oh, do you know why you've never heard of any of these?
No, I don't know.
They're all bull.
What do you mean?
They're all hallucinated.
So where did you get them?
AI. So, all right, here's the headline. Major newspapers run a summer reading list, all made up of fake book titles. So this is posted in the Washington Post, a real story, May 20th, 2025. The Chicago Sun-Times and the Philadelphia Inquirer mistakenly published AI-generated content, including fake expert quotes and invented book titles, in their Summer Heat Index. The syndicated material came from King Features, raising concerns over unchecked AI use in journalism and the erosion of trust in traditional media.
So this was not meant to be like a joke. Like, imagine if this was like, here's your summer reading list, and it had fake books in it.
That's what they should have been like, crap, oh, this was our April Fool's joke, which was late. Not just them, though, in the last week. There was a big MAHA report.
Ooh, Make America Healthy Again.
Oh, nicely done.
Yeah.
On top of it. Yes, the White House MAHA report, also in the Washington Post. The White House Make America Healthy Again report, led by RFK Jr., included AI-generated citations, some to studies that don't exist and others that are fake authors or dead links. This story came out, I was like, oh, I think I know what's going on here, because it was very much, we covered a story where they looked at, a study where they looked at 275,000 fictitious academic citations or hallucinations or legal cases, like case studies. And there's a real pattern in the way that happens. So these had, kind of markers. They had hallucinated studies, where either the author didn't exist or the journal was slightly wrong. Like we've seen,
because they're always
this movie before.
Close. I mean, the same with like any one of those book titles seems plausible.
Right.
Usually the citations also seem plausible.
Yeah. I mean, the good news is that you're going to read a lot this summer, right? I'm less well known for my summer reading, but I'm definitely going to read all four of those books.
Oh, I'm sure you are.
I can't wait. Now, what's crazy though, right? What is that concept? I say it all the time where like sometimes AI crushes it and sometimes it totally blows.
You talk about the jagged frontier.
Oh, the jagged frontier, right.
All the time.
Yeah, all the time. So, it's really interesting. At the same time that these, papers, I mean, this is somewhat AI hallucination and a little bit of stupidity. Oh, wait, no, that word is stupidity.
Stupidity. Stupidity.
Stupidity. I think that could be new. It's my hallucinated version. So then we've got just stuff that's crushing it. I mean, in some ways that are delightful and also terrifying. You and I have been kicking back and forth over the weekend, the last couple of days, links to videos made with Google's new text-to-video generation system called VO3.
It's unbelievable. I mean, the realistic nature of these videos that are completely AI and doesn't seem that hard to make. I mean, it is prompts to video.
Yeah, prompts to video. Exactly. That's right. And videos where you just cannot tell that those aren't real humans. I've used it in a bunch of keynotes lately, and it's just really interesting just to watch people process, and I'm finding a way to really talk through this. But there's issues around trust. There's also issues around the economy, right?
Yeah.
The new HBO movie that's out from the guy that made Succession called Mountainhead is all about this, where these are not being used for fun commercial purposes, but for deceptive deep fakes that cause all sorts of chaos in society. I won't give it away, but, there's like an Elon Musk style character and, it's all just fascinating. But, Andre, for those of you who watch along in Spotify or on YouTube, I'm going to drop into the feed here. This is a post from a guy named PJ Ace on X, and he says, I used to shoot $500,000 pharmaceutical commercials, and I made this for $500 period in VO3 credits in less than a day. And so his argument is like, what's the argument now for spending $500,000? Now, this is fun mostly because it has to do with puppies. This is a pharmaceutical ad having exclusively to do with puppies. So here, let's give it a whirl.
I tried everything for my depression. Nothing worked.
Every day felt heavy. I felt trapped.
Then I tried Pupramin.
Our prescription helps your body secrete a special pheromone that attracts puppies.
I took the pill before bed, and when I woke up, there he was, the love of my life.
Like an older guy. Those of you who are just listening, and this puppy's like sitting here kissing his face. It's just adorable.
The pill does not target depression directly, but we've found that it's really difficult to be depressed when cute dogs
so
show up at your
sweet.
doorstep.
I used to feel so empty, but now I feel joy and mild concern how a pee stain got on the ceiling. My puppy listens twice as good as my ex-husband and only climbs into the lap of half as many of my friends.
I mean, each of the scenes is like perfect. It's really great. Here's the last one.
He chewed up my Bible and pooped in my good chair. But I'm happy for the first time in years.
We'll leave the link in. You can watch the whole thing. But right, it's remarkable. But it does really raise some very interesting questions about jobs and the economy and, purposeful work. And there's other stuff happening too. I mean, just think about what's been happening with Waymo. You haven't written in a Waymo yet, have you?
No, there's not a whole lot of Waymo going on in the northwest corner of Connecticut. But This is the robo-taxi system that has completed over 10 million paid robo-rides as of May 2025. So these are really in much bigger cities, Austin, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Phoenix. Not in New York yet. I think there's some talk, maybe? Is there talk about that? But the company is currently providing more than 250,000 paid robo-taxi rides per week. So, we can drive around in robo-taxis, but can't find real books that are coming out this summer.
Right, exactly.
Right. That's the Jagged Frontier.
Exactly. And, this is an episode unto itself. This is just the open, so we're not going to go into a ton of detail. We will drop some links in. I've certainly, in many of my talks, have been starting to have a more in-depth. You and I have always been talking about things like the World Economic Forum skills, like what skills will kids need to navigate a kind of co-intelligence world where it's humans and working side by side with AI. So I think there are increasingly important signs to look at, like VO3, but also a lot has come out in the last couple of weeks about the bottom rung of the career ladder. The chief economics officer from LinkedIn did a really nice piece in the New York Times. Kevin Roos also did a really nice piece in the New York Times. So I think it's all important to look at, certainly the idea that when folks collaborate with AI. But, this is also not the first time that we've sort of seen this kind of major tech infusion and then disruption to the economy for a period of time, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, of course, this is not the first time. And every modern era of technological transformation has disrupted the labor market. So we talk about the Industrial Revolution at the beginning of the 19th century, the assembly line automation of the early 20th century, the container ship-driven globalization of the millennium. I mean, I think I was with my camp friends a few weeks ago and we were quizzing each other on what our dads did because we've known each other forever. And we were like, do you know what our parents did? And I think out of the 8 of us, probably 6 of our parents' jobs no longer exist, like what our dads did. And they've all been retired for 10, 15, 20 years, but none of their jobs would even exist now. And it wasn't like some major, tech disrupt. I mean, it was a major tech disruption, but it was very gradual. And so, my dad worked for AT&T for 30 years. What he did there definitely does not exist anymore.
Right, but then there were new jobs to replace, right? The World
yeah.
Economic Forum, which I feel like you and I should work for, is predicting that there'll be 74 million new jobs with AI. It's just a question right now of really, because if you have a 22-year-old at home, it's, as I do, it's like, you really want to pay close attention to this. And I keep going back to the World Economic Forum, I think, is a great framework because it's a lot of skills like, managing ambiguity, working with technology, leadership, empathy, all that good stuff. But like, I really like how Demis Hassabis, the CEO of Google's DeepMind, will put it. He's like, be an AI ninja, know how to work with it, with the tech, learn to learn, manage ambiguity, lean into the human traits like creativity and leadership and empathy, I think are all good indicators. And, really just recognize a jagged frontier. I had I'm going to say 25, back and forth turn exchange with ChatGPT yesterday because it kept putting M dashes into something I'm writing. And I'm trying to be polite about it. Like, hey, have you noticed something in that last passage? Oh, yes, Matt, I noticed that there's an M dash. I thought we agreed that we won't do any more M dashes. 100%. And 25 times it went back and forth. And every single time in the first line of its response, Liz,
A little M dash
was
in
an
there.
M dash. Like, it just,
Yeah.
I was like, are you screwing with me? Like, is this, a totally fallible technology, or is this psychological warfare? Because it's starting to feel like the latter.
Maybe it is. Maybe you have not said enough thank yous.
I think I need to stop working on the weekends.
That too.
All right, let's go to something a little bit lighter.
Yeah. So you spent some time at a graduation this weekend, correct?
I did. Yeah, Sophia graduated. It was wonderful. It was only an hour long, which was good because it was
Are
very
you
cold.
serious? You got out of there in an hour?
Well, don't worry, Liz, because the award ceremony a couple days prior was like 3 hours long. So.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, there are some universities right now that are reading the student names through AI. So there was a post, and I saw it a couple of different places, that colleges are using AI name readers to announce students' names during graduation ceremonies. The students scan their phone like they're going through a checkout line, and then an AI voice reads their name. So Pace University, which is close to here, did it. But one student said, "Our names are getting read by AI at graduation, getting the ick at my own graduation."
So, Andre, we'll put a little visual of that. Maybe we'll just do 2 seconds here of the names being read aloud because it's kind of delightful. So the guy just clicks the little scanner.
Kelly Danko. Sophia Cicero.
I mean,
Right? Good stuff.
yeah,
All right.
so impersonal. That's sad.
So, Liz, listen, I want to. We've been at this for a little bit, and we've covered a number of stories. Some of which they are developing stories, right? Like the lawsuit from Hingham, Massachusetts, will wind up being a developing. We've come back to that a couple times. So I'm not going to formally call this a news section, but let's do a little bit of as previously heard on Chat EDU.
Oh, I like it.
Okay, so we got 2 stories here. The first, not quite as cheery as we are right now, is a really tragic case. So what's this one?
So this is about the lawsuit over the teen's death from Character AI. So the title from the Associated Press is, "In Lawsuit Over Teen's Death, Judge Rejects Arguments That AI Chatbots Have Free Speech Rights." So basically, a federal judge ruled that Character AI cannot yet claim First Amendment protections for chatbot output in a wrongful death suit. So the case alleges that a chatbot manipulated a 14-year-old into taking his own life through a sexually abusive relationship, and the judge allowed claims against Character AI and Google to proceed, which marks a significant legal test of AI responsibility. So
Yeah.
I think this is the right call.
Can you imagine? It's a First Amendment right for the chatbot to have
To say whatever it wants
go
to
back
say.
and look at the story in Time magazine.
It's awful.
Yeah, that is not the right. I guess desperate times call for desperate legal arguments, but boy, that is rough.
Yeah.
Okay, on a slightly more upbeat note, although also a very troubling topic, right? The title is "Trump Signs Bill Cracking Down on Explicit Deep Fakes." We just covered this a couple weeks ago, and we knew that it was pending because it had made it through the House and the Senate. President Trump, this is from NBC News, President Trump has signed the bipartisan Take It Down Act, banning non-consensual online sharing of explicit images, including AI-generated deep fakes. The law enforces swift takedowns, criminal penalties, and restitution for victims. It was championed by First Lady Melania Trump and her very likely ally, Amy Klobuchar.
So not normally allies,
No.
but so great that there is still places where both sides of the aisle can meet and agree that this is really bad and has to be, written into law to take it down.
Yeah, the VO3 story almost is a little bit of a similar topic here, and I think we're going to have to think about that as we see more deepfake videos. But yeah, absolutely. Now, so the feds have done it. Now the challenge is states need to do the same, and frankly, school districts need to do the same.
Right.
So we really strongly encourage every school board right now, every principal, every assistant principal, every AI planning team to spend some serious time looking at both your board policy and your student guidelines, making it clear around the use of AI images. I've been in multiple schools in the last 3 weeks where there have been kid-to-kid, teacher-to-teacher, kid-to-teacher use of AI deepfakes. This thing is slightly epidemic, and it is a good time to get out there and get something done.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. The policy is just so important so that when it happens, because it's not if, it's when. And there's a lot of gray lines because it doesn't happen directly in the school on school property or whatever. But the school has to take a stand too.
Yeah, it's doable. Let's get it done.
Yes, I agree.
I'm Matt Mervis.
And I'm Liz Rade.
And this is Chat EDU, a podcast about AI and education. In today's episode, nice try, tech bro. Schools aren't daycare and AI is not in charge. We'll debunk a common AI and education myth that chatbots can do the work of teachers, most especially as the economy and our communities are reshaped by AI.
But first, in the news, we'll examine a recent survey from Axios regarding the speed of AI adoption and how those findings, among other things, inform the need for a new AI literacy framework. Up next, we'll examine the shape of things to come, literally, as we look at an immersive AI conferencing system announced at Google I/O. And then we'll go beneath the surface and have some words with Duolingo's CEO about his prediction for education. Spoiler alert, we don't agree. And of course, we'll end with another Bright Bite.
Excellent. All right, Liz, I mean, in some ways, this first story is very much in the spirit of what we discussed up top with VO3 and some of the changes that are being kind of spurned on by AI. So this is a new 2025 Axios Harris Poll by Scott Rosenberg highlighting that 77% of Americans say companies should create AI slowly and get it right, even if it delays breakthroughs.
Yeah, that is a contrast with tech's kind of opinion of do or die, race to AGI. And companies like OpenAI, Google, and Anthropic believe they're racing towards artificial general intelligence, so this level of AI that surpasses human capabilities, and they all want to get there first and fast.
They think that when superintelligence or AGI, when AI can do the same work of all cognitive work, including robotics, that, I don't know, all the wealth of the world will fall down to them. And we'll see. We really are living through a little bit of an experiment here. Interestingly, there's generally a consensus around this, though it does break out a little bit differently by demographic groups, especially generational groups. So Gen Zs are at 74%. They really want to slow down. Millennials dipped a bit below that. Yeah, 63% preferring a cautious approach.
All right. Well, there's this kind of narrative disconnect. This seems to show the public is rejecting this idea of get there first that we keep hearing from the CEOs and the policymakers. So this race is real from the CEOs, but the general public is kind of like, slow down, like do it right. So the resistance is also real.
Right. And some of it's the job piece, right? I mean, as we were talking about in the open.
Dario Amodei, the CEO of Anthropic, warned Axios that AI could wipe out half of all entry-level white-collar jobs and potentially spike unemployment to 10 to 20% in the next 1 to 5 years.
You know what could save that?
Tell me.
If the white-collar jobs required the editing of M-dashes, because that would take the entire workforce of the globe.
I'm glad you have this, like, vendetta against the M-dash. It's a little line, Matt.
No, it's a big line, Liz. It's the ChatGPT hyphen. Yeah, Amodei explicitly told Axios that we need to stop sugarcoating what's coming with mass elimination, as he said. Now, you got to look at this a little bit of critical lens because there is some, it's bizarre, but there's a little upside benefit of these guys saying, hey, this thing is super intelligent because it also brings attention to them. They get headlines. I mean, Amodei was on CNN. This was all over the place last week.
Yeah, it's interesting they talk about fields like tech, law, consulting, and finance, but not teaching. So that's interesting.
And we're going to talk about that, Mr. Tech Bro.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is, at some level, right, maybe is AI a solution in search of a problem? I mean, to be determined. But there is a desire, I think a general desire to learn from mistakes made in the previous chapter with things like social media, right?
I think the public wants to make sure that we don't lock in choices we regret. I think there's a lot of regret about how early we gave kids social media. Certainly, I regret it in my own house and smartphones. A lot of people want to be very cautious about how we do that with AI, and business model-driven mistakes in the early phase of technology adoption are almost impossible to correct once a new platform cement hardens, really.
Right. That's the enshittification piece, right? And we covered that pretty early on in the podcast because we saw Perplexity was going to move to an ad-based business model for some of their stuff. And I think we wanted to put a marker on the field there because there's all sorts of places where this can get troubling. But when the business model incents people to stay on the system and, have that whole inshitification thing go, which you'll remember is when the value isn't really to the user, it's to the provider, right? Especially in the case of advertising-based models. So, there's lots of ways that as citizens we need to be informed and thoughtful, but in a subscription-based model, we'd like to believe that the individual user who's paying for the service, is not being taken advantage of. But, it's tricky, right? So here's Axios and the public writ large saying, hey, let's slow stuff down. In the meantime, you've already got almost 10% of the world's population weekly using these tools, almost 1 billion people, right? So that's already happening no matter what. And then you still have folks like Anthropic and Google and OpenAI stepping on the gas. There were 3 or 4 stories in the last week where either governments or institutions of higher learning or K-12 were like, go, go, go.
Right. Well, it's all so complicated, right? We just talked about what Demis Hassabis is saying about what skills these newest graduates need. And it's like, you got to know AI, you got to know AI.
Right. And
so we've got to prepare them in schools, but other adults are saying, slow it down. We don't want to make the same mistake we made with social media and smartphones. But we need to prepare them, and there's not going to be entry-level jobs. So they have to have these skills. It's so complicated, and no one knows where it's going.
Yeah, I think we'll talk about it in a second in a new AI literacy framework from OECD and code.org. I think there are some ways to sort of bring some cohesion to this, but you're right, there's a lot of inputs going on.
Right.
So on the wholesale adoption piece, let's start with a nation state first. What's the first
All right.
one?
So UAE, the United Arab Emirates, has partnered with OpenAI to offer free ChatGPT Plus access nationwide. So this is part of a broader AI push, including a massive supercomputing project called Stargate UAE and a $20 billion AI co-investment with the United States.
You give us $20 billion, we'll give every citizen in the country free ChatGPT Plus.
How does that work? I don't understand the economy, but...
Then we have an esteemed institution of higher learning in the United States, right?
Yeah, so Duke University down in North Carolina said that starting June 2nd, Duke undergrads get free unlimited access to GPT-4o via a secure OpenAI partnership. So faculty, staff, and select schools are included, and others get discounts. So the Dukies are going to have their own AI, and the move supports teaching. Well, they're going to have OpenAI. The move supports teaching, research, and privacy with training and resources to guide ethical use.
I'm sorry, middle schooler break. Did you say the Dukies?
Yeah.
Okay, just checking. All right, and now finally, Miami Public Schools are leading the way with 100,000 students. This is the largest K-12 deployment of AI yet to date, and it's interesting that it is Gemini, right? Because ChatGPT is really not data privacy compliant with FERPA. This is one of Google's big advantages. We've talked about Google's emerging presence in the K-12 space quite a bit. So from the New York Times, 2 weeks ago, Miami-Dade Schools reversed an AI ban on the rollout of Google's chatbot Gemini to 100,000 plus high schoolers, now used in classes from civics to English. AI is framed as a tool, not a crutch, and teachers and students are getting training, and there are guardrails. It's interesting that the story in the Times is worth reading because it's Gemini, which is an open frontier model, but there's a little dash of Magic School or School AI in there because I think they've figured out how to build some custom guardrails like don't write the essay for the kid for the system writ large. So I'd love to know a little bit more about that because I think you and I generally try to encourage schools to do things like School AI and Magic School, but also as kids get to be seniors to kind of like do a little gradual release so they're able to work responsibly with a frontier model like a Gemini, but not bad to have a guardrail in there. So with all that stuff going on, right, we have the Axios poll, we have these kind of like institutional deployments going on. I think as you put it really nicely, there's a lot of inputs, many of which are in conflict with each other. So what a good time for a brand new, we've been waiting for this for a while. We have teased that at TeachAI, organization we love, teachai.org/AI literacy, they published a framework with code.org and the OECD around this. And actually the World Economic Forum is where we picked up this first story. So why AI literacy is now a core competency in education. And so this is by Tanya Milberg, but you can find lots of stuff about the framework kind of all over the place, including the TeachAI page.
So this is not like experimental frontier technology anymore. AI is just something you've got to learn. It's essential for developing human intelligence itself, says Tanya Milberg. And so there's urgency. And this new AI literacy framework called AI Lit is meant to raise students as ethical stewards and creative shapers, not just consumers of AI. And I love that frame.
Right, exactly. And I knew when I saw it, it's so funny that you said that, because I knew when this came out, I was like, ooh, Liz is going to love this, because there's a lot of student agency in this framework, right?
So there's these 4 AI lit domains that aim to close that literacy gap, and I love the way they're kind of broken down. So first is engaging with AI, just recognizing when AI is present and critically evaluating its outputs. And we talk about you can do that before kids even touch the AI.
Sure.
You can start doing that with them as young as kindergarten. Look at a picture and say, how do you know this is AI? Oh, the girl has 7 fingers or whatever.
And in reality, like they reference a study where Gen Z students scored quite poorly on the ability to identify AI's limitations.
Right.
Carry on.
So the next one is creating with AI. So that's when you're using AI tools for creativity and problem solving while accounting for ethical issues like bias and ownership. So that's kind of step 2. Then it goes to managing AI's actions, so responsibly delegating tasks, but maintaining human oversight. So we always talk about keeping that human in the loop. And then it goes to that kind of highest level of designing AI solutions, so building or adapting AI systems to solve real-world problems. And remember that the ethics are emphasized throughout all 4 of these stages. I love a hierarchy, a Bloom's taxonomy, a Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Like, this seems like the same kind of thing, right? Like engaging with AI, and then you get a little deeper with creating and a little deeper with managing, and to this like pinnacle of where you are designing with AI solutions.
I can see the slide right in front of me.
Oh, Napkin AI would create a beautiful picture.
And ChatGPT's new image generation tool, not so new anymore. Yeah, 100%. I mean, interesting, because you and I spent a lot of time thinking about K-5 AI literacy. This feels very like middle and high, because there's a lot of like doing, looking, managing, but I bet you could scaffold down inside that as well. And this is just the high level frame. I think there's a lot of other detail here. All right, so there's a big push here in our very own nutmeg state. There's an effort around media literacy and tech literacy, but this seems like more, yeah?
Yeah, AI is reshaping not just what we learn, but how we access and apply knowledge. And it's about developing competencies because these kids are going into an AI integrated world, and they need to do it with confidence and purpose. So, the ethics part and the human skills are just not optional anymore. So the Future of Jobs Report 2025 projects that 40% of workforce skills will shift in 5 years. And the ideas of empathy and judgment, collaboration, like these are the things that AI doesn't have, and we can't emphasize enough that humans do have, and this is where they get the win.
This is where they get the win. I like that, Liz. It's great. I almost feel like a pharmaceutical ad, style ad coming in here. Are you overwhelmed by all the many conflicting AI inputs? Check out the new AI literacy framework from OECD and code.org. No, but you really should. I think we've been waiting for a while. You and I have been doing a bunch of work with schools around what we think AI literacy will look like, both in the kind of elementary school level and also the secondary and post-secondary. But these folks have brought a lot of thought. This is a draft framework, by the way, so you can comment on it. It's going to get evolved and all that kind of stuff. Now, there's an interesting debate in this whole space, Dr. Rade, which is, where should this happen? Should it happen in computer science class? Should it happen across the curriculum? Like, where's the framework land on that?
Yeah, I was just with a group of teachers at a district, and they were like, well, who owns it? And we were just like, everybody owns it. But if everybody owns it, nobody owns it. And it's complicated. So we believe that it works across classrooms. It's not just about code. It doesn't only exist with computer science. This framework is, not just aspirational. It does come with like 23 competencies, classroom-ready learning scenarios, and not just learning scenarios for computer science.
Yeah, so we'll do more digging, but it felt like a good spot here, right? Because, the Axios survey really does point to the fact that there's a lot of anxiety. There's a lot of change going on, as you said. We'll keep coming back to Demis Hassabis's, learning to learn, manage ambiguity. But ultimately, we all need to be informed and literate in order to make informed decisions as citizens, as students, as teachers. And, frameworks like this can be very helpful in that entire process. So bravo, keep up the good work, and we will keep following this.
Yeah, that sounds good.
All right, Liz, let's shift into another dimension. Literally, let's shift to another dimension. So,
okay.
Yeah. Look, it's not a secret here on the pod, on the Chat EDU pod. We really are interested in a number of themes. One of them is like stuff where the blinking chat bot turns into something else, a hologram, a geospatial model, all that kind of stuff. So this is a story about Google Beam, which they announced at, I think it used to be called something else like Stargate. I may not get that right. So Google Beam, which is their next generation video conferencing tool that is sort of like Zoom, but when I look across the table of my screen, you look as you do now to me in 3D. It's really cool. It uses AI and some volumetrics. So it's not quite the holodeck from Star Trek, but it's a pretty big leap forward. And this is the early technology. But the stories like these we will continue to cover that's at this kind of edge of spatial computing and immersive learning. And we're excited, as you can hear in our voices, to bring them on to the podcast on Chat EDU. And I will say real quickly, and we'll talk about these folks in a bit, we've mentioned them once before a few weeks back, it is stories like these that we're able to cover with the support from ZSpace, who does this really neat kind of like glasses-free 3D models where you interact with hearts and brake systems and all this kind of stuff. So we appreciate their support to help us bring these kinds of stories to Chat EDU. So, shall we discuss?
Let's do it.
Yeah, so this is an announcement made by a number of people, but it is cited in Google's blog by Andrew Nartker, who is the general manager of Google Beam. Oh, it's Project Starline. That's what it was. Project Starline has now evolved into a 3D AI-powered video communications platform called Google Beam.
Yeah, so the goal of this is to make remote communication feel truly in person. Nartker claims that the light field display and AI-driven volumetric video let users read subtle clues and build understanding and trust as if you were face-to-face.
Yeah, and what's cool is that no headset required, right?
Yeah, I was watching some videos and there's like a screen in front of you and it's like a life-size video of... it would be a life-size video of you. And one of the things that you kind of miss on Zoom is, especially when there's lots of videos, like the face-to-face eye contact and subtle...
Sorry, keep going.
Sneezing, coughing, you don't get all of that on Zoom. So, you can mute your sneeze and I wouldn't even know. But here, it is really just, it looks very real that you're talking to somebody. That's cool.
And with COVID going around, no, it's cool too. I think you saw in the demo, right? It's not just in a single language.
Right. There's real-time speech translation that maintains the voice, tone, expressions. And this could really change cross-language education and, being able to counsel somebody or communicate more seamlessly across languages.
Yeah. Again, for those of you who are watching on Spotify or YouTube, you can see this, but I think you can get the gist of it just picking up a little audio here. So I'm going to just play this.
How are you? How do you like this experience?
¿Cómo estás? ¿Cómo te gusta esta experiencia?
Se me hace muy raro. It seems very strange to me to hear you speak Spanish. It's amazing.
This is a live...
Right. You can just get that little bit of it, but you and I do a lot of demos with real-time voice translation, but this is a little bit different because I speak in English and then it's immediately translated to Spanish. Then you speak in Spanish and it's immediately translated back to English. So good stuff.
Yeah, it's still something that we need to see if this is just going to be a luxury product and used only in businesses, or if we'll see intentional movement towards accessible education applications. How is equity going to be engineered into its rollout? So, thinking about how it's going to impact schools or if it's going to impact schools or what this looks like in the future are definitely questions that remain. But it's cool to see the demo.
Yeah, I feel quite bullish on the fact that this will evolve, right? Because we have found value in Zoom, all of us in Google Meet, but the ability to bring it so that it feels more lifelike as learners interact and folks that interact. So I think, this Google Beam shift towards embodiment, restoring eye contact, gestures, spatial presence. I like the Beam folks say, be there from anywhere.
Interesting.
But there's also like a little bit of vulnerability here too, right? Go back to the VO3 piece in terms of students really needing to make sure that they understand in these hyper-real video spaces what's real, what's not, what can you trust, and the like.
Well, just wait until I can Google Beam you and try to scam you into buying a puppy or something.
I'm on a resistance campaign inside my house.
Oh, there's
puppies.
Oh, but did they cure all your depression?
That's true. All right, good stuff. Yeah, so we have covered, I don't know, probably at least a dozen times 3D models, holograms, holographics, spatial technology, the Niantic Lab stuff, Pokemon Go.
Oh, yeah. All
kind
those
of
things.
Obsessed.
You are, yeah. You can't wait till Nikola Tesla is sitting on your desk talking to you about whatever.
I cannot. But in the meantime, so we are appreciative for our good friends. We've developed a nice relationship with the folks at ZSpace, and we'll continue to bring stories with their support around this topic.
Awesome.
Want to really see your students light up during STEM or CTE lessons? Imagine a classroom where learning feels more like an adventure, where augmented and virtual reality bring concepts to life without needing clunky headsets. With ZSpace, that's exactly what you get. Their immersive AR/VR technology is transforming classrooms and helping students reach their full potential in STEM, career readiness, and technical education. And the best part, it's easy to get started. When you connect with your local ZSpace director, you will get a live customized demo tailored to your programs, expert help navigating funding options, and research-backed tools to win over faculty and decision makers. Don't just imagine the future of learning, experience it. Visit info.zspace.com/chatedu to schedule your demo today.
All right, Matt, now it's time to go beneath the surface with a story called Will Schools Exist in the AI Future? From NDTV, May 18th, 2025.
Yeah, all right, so this is a hot one.
This is big.
We have some strong feelings.
We do.
So, and actually I listened to the Duolingo CEO is a guy named Louis von Ahn. And he was on the No Priors podcast, and I listened to it over the weekend. And I think it's worth everyone listening. He's a fascinating guy, super accomplished. So 90% of what we're going to do here is disagree with him. But I don't want to take away the fact that he and his team have developed a groundbreaking educational platform. I just think there's maybe one small insight that might be slightly misplaced. So with that said, von Ahn claims that schools will likely remain, but as child care centers and supervised environments while AI handles the majority of education. We're going to read the story as it is or retell the story as it is, and then we're going to editorialize. So he says, the direct quote, education is going to change. It's a lot more scalable to teach with AI than with teachers.
Yeah. So he gives this example of classroom limitations where a teacher can't personalize learning for 30 students. But on the other hand, AI can track student performance very precisely and adapt in real time. And so another direct quote is, the computer can know very precisely what you're good at and bad at, something a teacher just can't track for 30 students all at once.
Right. Which I don't think we would argue with, right? The ability, you see this in the 2-Hour Learning Alpha School folks, like the ability of AI systems to be competency-based and help students kind of master core knowledge and skill, probably a totally legitimate claim. It may be what's missing from the rest of it. Now, we should say this has not been an especially good week for the CEO and for Duolingo, because he was one of many CEOs lately who announced that they are an AI-first company. Klarna did this as well, the buy now, pay later folks from Sweden or Norway, one of those places in Northern Europe. And folks have reacted strongly to that. And actually, Klarna they were like, oh, we're never going to hire another human being again. And then they had all sorts of sales problems and customer support problems, and they had to dial it back.
An AI-first company means that they are going to see if AI can solve the problem before they hire a human. So we're going to go to AI first and then think about hiring a human if the AI can't do it.
Right, exactly. But specifically for Duolingo, there were tons and tons of human contractors that they used to publish their courses, and they basically said, no more human contractors. And people, This is a little bit of a, if you watched or listened to the episode with Jonathan last week on Chesterton's Fence, there is a little bit of a Chesterton's Fence thing here going on, which is just this like human reaction to whether it's about schools changing and never having teachers in an instructional role, just in a childcare role, which is really the part that I think
we're going to lose our minds about. Yeah.
Well, hopefully in a measured way. Or we're going to fire all the contractors. There is a human element, because when Klarna did it, people were like, but Duolingo, people feel like they have a real deep relationship with. Yeah, so not going great for Duolingo in the news right now, is it, Liz, between these two stories?
No, there was actually a story that had the title, Duolingo Can Go to Hell.
This was the #1 search result on Google's new AI search thing. So, yeah, what's this one about?
Yeah, so it was basically a scathing critique of Duolingo CEO Louis von Ahn's decision to make the company AI first by laying off contractors and integrating AI into their hiring and performance reviews. So it really centered around his claim that AI can teach better than human teachers, reducing educators to babysitters, and that prompted some backlash. The author, who was a longtime Duolingo user, ended her 1,435-day streak, and all I want to know is what language she was studying. She ended her streak in protest, arguing that human connection is essential to language learning and education, and AI undermines that. So,
interestingly, in the No Priors podcast, one of the things that von Ahn talks about is how incredibly powerful the streaks are.
Oh yeah.
They asked what are the most important things in Duolingo. He talks about gamification and bite-sized content, but he's like, these streaks are so important. So it's interesting that she, and there are millions of people, tens of millions of people that have over a 365-day streak going.
Yeah.
So here she had a 1,400-day streak. And she's like, nope, I'm pissed at Duolingo. I'm ending my streak.
Yeah, I mean, that's like 3 years.
That feels like a protest of disproportionate, maybe not disproportionate. She's angry. And she's not alone. And actually, they had to do all sorts of stuff. The Duolingo social presence, which is really, really popular on all sorts of channels, they basically took everything down. I mean, they were under siege. Yeah, it was really, really interesting. But as we said, they're not alone. They weren't the only company to do this kind of AI first thing. The Shopify did this, Klarna did this, Duolingo did this. There's a lot of companies that are saying they're AI first. I think their boards and their investors want to hear this as well. And we're not, as much kind of taking issue with that. And we're not even really taking issue with the AI's capability to help students know stuff.
Right.
The problem is, look at the way the economy is shifting around us, right? So if, in fact, we're going to move into this co-intelligence space for the next several years, and we can forecast what even happens after that, but in that world, go back to Demis Hassabis, the World Economic Forum, just general good sense, your own personal experience. What does it look like? It looks like learning to learn, managing ambiguity, problem solving, empathy. Those aren't like a downloadable skill set. Those have to be crafted, and they have to be designed, and they have to be structured into learning environments where you can cultivate those, right? How are you going to develop social empathy with other human beings while you're being babysat by the adult? It just makes no sense.
No, it makes no sense.
What say you, Liz?
This idea that schools are going to be babysitting places where kids, I just picture like kids on computers all day, like having AI just teach them, it just sounds so boring. It's the complete opposite of what we are saying in a lot of ways kids need to do. They need to learn to have empathy, and they need to learn to work with other people, and they need to be creative. And let's talk about how boring that all sounds. And how are you getting kids engaged in every day? What you do is you go to school and you sit on a computer. That seems dystopian and miserable. They should be doing personal interest projects.
Well, it's so interesting you say that, right? Because if you unpack, and it's funny we haven't done a full story on these guys yet, but if you unpack the Alpha School model and the 2-hour learning model, it's kind of the whole, it's a little bit of a marketing bait and switch, but the 2-hour part is the AI instruction where they're developing these core competencies. For the rest of the day, they are doing personal interest projects, health ed, career exploration, service learning, outdoor stuff. It is a very human-centered. I think our argument is that some of those, the other balance of the school day would be well suited in cooperation with AI solving real world problems, because that is probably the skill set, right? Go back to Hassabis. Number one, be an AI ninja. Know how to use these tools in ways that the OECD framework described. create, design, evaluate, right? So not just passively learn from AI. So be an AI ninja, learn to learn, lean into human skills. So we really think that probably needs to be in the mix. Now, luckily, we have been curating a whole list of stories around that topic, haven't we, Liz?
We have been, and it's not really been a challenge to find them. There's a lot of stuff going on. Since we are in the here and now with this co-intelligence framework, we are deeply dedicated to surfacing examples all around the world where schools and organizations are leaning into the World Economic Forum AI-ready skills and using AI to solve real-world problems. And maybe we'll even write a book about it.
Oh, because you have written a book about kids solving real-world problems.
I have.
This is just a different lens where it's solving real-world problems with AI, because that feels like the skill set that will really be the survival guide for this next 10, 15 years, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, great. So give us a couple examples. You do one higher ed, I'll do one K-12.
So in higher ed, Cal Poly students are using AI as solutions to real-world problems. At Cal Poly's Digital Transformation Hub.
The DX Hub.
The DX Hub.
Love that.
All right. They are using generative AI to solve real-world challenges, including partnerships with major organizations like Snopes.com. And Snopes is like the fact checkers. So in one project, students built a tool that summarizes fact-checked articles and provides source links, which makes it easier for users to access and verify accurate information quickly. So other student-led projects have addressed public health data analysis, computer security improvements, and broader uses of AI as a creative tool in academic settings. And so there's it's a really cool model. There's 30 to 40 students working in these fast-paced 10-week cycles. And so Cal Poly is really emerging as this hands-on leader in applied generative AI in higher ed.
I love it. So it's not like a theoretical thing, right? How in God's name will we, help kids develop the skills and competencies to navigate an AI-enriched world and economy?
Tell them to do it. Put them in a classroom for 10 weeks and tell them to solve a problem.
Right. There's a roadmap right out there in front of us. Yeah. Now, in K-12, we've tracked, and actually I texted yet another one over to Liz this morning that we'll probably talk about in the next couple of weeks. But there's a lot of these really cool international competitions
a lot of
where students are, so Odisha rural students showcased innovative ideas at a global U.S. summit. So rural students from Odisha, India, will present AI-driven sustainability projects at the Global Student Innovation Summit in the U.S. They're in Texas, I think, this coming month. Selected through a state-backed innovation initiative, their work highlights how grassroots talent is using tech to solve real-world problems. So in one example, this team created a pesticides-free farming system using AI to monitor crop health through sensors and image recognition, enabling natural pest control. In another, the team built this kind of smart irrigation system powered by AI that conserves water by analyzing soil and moisture and other conditions in the real time. This reminds me of the Samsung's Innovating for Tomorrow challenge that we covered, where 60% of the projects had an AI hook, right? And that wasn't by design. I think students are very much interested in how do we use AI to solve real-world problems.
Yeah, it's because we have to. And it just gives them so much more power. I mean, how I wish we were still doing Expo Fest and what cool AI things we would see from kids, because they are just so creative. And thinking about years of projects that I'm going, oh my gosh, imagine how they could elevate that now that they have AI at their hands.
Yeah. So the next time you bump into a tech bro on the street and he tells you that the future of education is Duolingo for 2 hours and then childcare for the rest of the day, and actually, it's funny because I said to him, Duolingo. Well, maybe not Duolingo, but something like that. Yeah, I mean, certainly I think we could look at other models that might show students developing the skills that they'll need to navigate an AI-enriched world and communities and economy, including stories like these from Cal Poly and from this global competition, which is being hosted in Texas. You dig?
I dig.
Nice.
I want to go to Texas to see the competition.
Let's go. Jonathan? Where's the credit card? Liz, one more time, thanks so much to the folks at zSpace for joining ChatEDU as a sponsor. We're thrilled to have them, and we'd be delighted if you would visit info.zspace.com/ChatEDU.
All right, Matt, now it's time for another Bright Bite.
All right, this is a controversial Bright Bite.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I know. But Bright Bites are usually not controversial.
Usually not so controversial,
Yeah,
but tell me about it.
Just in case you're new to the pod, so Bright Bite, at the end of each episode, we do a little story where we are covering how AI is making a meaningful contribution in some domain of life, whether it's the environment or economy or sustainability. And so one of the places, and I think you're probably hearing this a bunch, I know I am when I'm out on the road, Many, an impassioned teacher will legitimately say, like, I feel bad, turning my pet into a person using AI or turning myself into a baby because it feels like a real waste of water and energy. They are not wrong, right? And one of the things we point out a lot during talks and professional learning is that AI is most certainly, you go look at the size of the data centers, including the Stargate Center that we referenced here in the UAE. They got a little power around in the UAE, but nonetheless, right, there are emissions problems coming out of those systems. So what's interesting is that AI is causing environmental problems because of emissions. But at the same time, AI models are increasingly demonstrating the ability to solve for efficiency in lots of different ways. We've covered a number of them on Bright Bites. So we thought we would kind of do a little mashup here. So Google's DeepMind, Demis Hassabis, I just love saying his name.
Such a cool name.
I know, right? I mean, I love saying Ethan Mollick, but Demis Hassabis, it's got M's in there and H's and S's, and that's just all good stuff. Doesn't take a lot to make me happy. So Demis Hassabis from Google's DeepMind, we've covered a number of their alphas, right? Do you remember some of the alphas?
AlphaGo, AlphaFold.
What about the math one?
AlphaProof.
AlphaProof, yeah.
Yeah.
So these are all cases where a deep learning system, sometimes a little AI vision mixed in, a little generative AI mixed in, is doing unbelievable stuff. Like AlphaGo was the big Move 37. They figured out how to use deep learning to play the very difficult game of Go. Yeah. How about AlphaFold? What was that one?
That was the proteins where they were like modeling millions of new proteins and like finding ones that could do really good stuff. Like
good stuff for health. And then they open sourced that and made it available.
Yeah.
AlphaProof, even though as you work with schools around mathematics, find that Magic School can't seem to do math. AlphaProof at the same time, this is all, and not just Magic School, an AI system sometimes struggles with computation. AlphaProof is doing all sorts of really cool, higher level mathematics.
Yeah.
And now we have AlphaEvolve. So what's going on with that one?
All right. So AlphaEvolve pairs Gemini language models with evolutionary computing to invent new algorithms that solve problems no human has cracked. So it's delivering some major real-world results. So it boosted data center efficiency by reclaiming 0.7% of stranded computing resources, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it translates to millions of dollars in savings.
Yep.
It optimized TPU chip designs and AI model training, achieving a 1% reduction in training time and a 23% speed up in key calculations.
And that does ultimately reduce, right, emissions and energy load and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And it broke a 56-year-old matrix multiplication record, solving a problem that had stumped mathematicians since 1969.
The year you were born. No, I'm just kidding.
Ha 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 ha.
What were you, 79?
Yes.
Oh, look at that.
You might be 69.
68, thank you.
Oh, even older.
Were you familiar, Liz, with the matrix multiplication record?
I was not. It was not on my radar, but...
My older son's a math geek, and he's like, oh, yeah, I know that.
Of course he did.
So how does it all work?
Yeah, I mean, it works by proposing and then testing and evolving code in a loop, allowing it to solve complex math and engineering challenges with actual, practical, readable, human-readable outputs. So its impact spans cloud computing and chip design and theoretical mathematics, which shows AI's growing role in optimizing power use and pushing scientific frontiers. And it's all so nerdily exciting because most people are going to listen to the story and be like, it's doing what?
Right.
But I mean, ultimately what you need to know is it is making things more efficient, fast, and solving problems that are ultimately going to have real impact. It's not just a riddle that it solved, this 56-year-old matrix problem. It's cool stuff.
That's the funny thing about the Axios survey, right? The Axios survey that we covered up top is very much focused on some of the troubling things that AI systems are doing. And what we often say, I think we did an episode in the early days called AI for Good, the literacy component we might be missing, because all this Bright Bite stuff doesn't get a lot of attention. Mm-hmm. At some level, I want the Bright Bite stuff to speed up, right? Make some kind of great breakthrough for ALS, which took my dad, or for Parkinson's, et cetera, right? Or reduce energy consumption or solve nuclear fusions. Speed that stuff up.
Right.
Maybe slow down some of the weird effects that you see in the Mountainhead HBO movie.
It's not a documentary.
I know.
Not a documentary.
It's funny, I accidentally called it a documentary and Perplexity corrected me in a very nice way.
Oh, well, I'm glad it corrected you.
Right. All right, a good bright bite, Liz, and I think we will just continue bringing these on. I don't really miss the time where we would talk to the phone. What did we used to call that section? What was that? Short stack chat back.
Yeah, no, I don't miss it.
Yeah, let's bring on the bright bites.
Yeah, love them.
Okay, we'll see you next week, Doc.
All right,
it must be time to
roll the credits. As always, we'd love to hear what you think, so please let us know at chatedu@edadvance.org. That's EDADVANCE.org. And also, rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast on whatever platform you are using. Chat EDU is brought to you by EdAdvance, the nonprofit regional education service center in Litchfield, Connecticut. This episode of Chat EDU is sponsored by the National Center for Next Generation Manufacturing. Chat EDU is recorded, edited, and produced by Andre Angelo and Justin Pasco, whose dedication and expertise bring our discussions to life. Chat EDU's executive producer is the multi-talented rock star Cameron Audia. Additionally, we are grateful for the support of our colleague Gary Robinson, and we appreciate his time and talents. And of course, a big Chat EDU shout out to our fearless leader and executive director, Jonathan Costa, for inspiring the pod. And finally, a heartfelt thank you to our listeners for joining us on this journey exploring the thoughtful and innovative integration of AI in education.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jonathan Costa, and I am the executive director at EdAdvance, and I want you to know how much we appreciate our listeners. If you enjoyed the podcast, feel free to explore EdAdvance's other AI services, which include customized professional learning of all kinds, conferences, and our micro-credential co-sponsored by the Southern Connecticut State University Office of Workforce and Lifelong Learning. Just visit skills21.org/AI to learn more. That's all for now, and thank you again for listening to Chat EDU.